We've been traveling all over the northern half of the province for our Recommended Reads series this summer, and later this week we'll actually travel to Grand Prairie, where we'll be broadcasting live from the public library there on Thursday.
Yeah, so for today's Rural Recommended Reads, we're meeting one of the library staff members ahead of our visit.
My name is Haley McCullough, and I'm the head of adult services at the Grand Prairie Public Library in Grand Prairie, Alberta. Oh boy, I have been in libraries for around 10 years now. I started out as a volunteer, and then I moved on to being a page, and then a library assistant with the academic library at Western University, and then on to a college library, and then finally back into public libraries again. I would always go to the local library when I was a kid to just check out books and stuff, and I'd leave with a giant stack of probably about 30 books or so. So I've always just loved to read, and that love of reading started quite young, and it's just kind of stayed with me throughout my life. But I really kind of got interested in public libraries again, when I was in high school and I had taken a career aptitude test, and it told me my top result was, you should be a librarian. And so I kind of just filed that away in the back of my mind. And then a few years later, when I was in university thinking about what I wanted to do afterwards, I thought back to that aptitude test. I was like, well, maybe it was on to something. And so that's when I tried, volunteering in libraries again. And I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty cool. I think I do want to do this. That test was right. I manage a team of about 6 different library professionals, librarians, library technicians, clerks, and assistants. I do a lot of projects and a lot of report writing. So I apply for grants to do different things. One of the projects that I've taken on is Project Full Stop, which sees free pads and tampons in all the library's washrooms. I also did a project called Pretty Fly for a Wi-Fi, which has us lending Wi-Fi hubs to people in the community so they can access internet at home, because it's a very expensive thing to do, and not everyone has the financial means to do that. So it's important to make sure the access is there, and the library can provide you with that. These days, libraries are really interesting places that sort of act as the hubs in their community, and they really stitch that social fabric together of all these different people with different backgrounds, different cultures, and I think that's just a really beautiful thing. I really love the traditional physical books. Maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned that way, but my favorite genres are probably thrillers, romances, general fiction. I just read one called The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, and I really love scary movies, and there's a lot of really great callbacks to some of the classics in that book. Basically, it's about a group of women who survived their own massacres, and they meet in a Final Girl Support Group to try and overcome the trauma they experienced and move on with their lives. But when one of them misses a meeting, it starts to look like someone is hunting them, and so you're kind of left wondering who's going to survive, and is there going to be a final girl of the final girls. It does a really good job of kind of keeping you on your toes and giving you lots of twists and turns to try and figure out what's going on and who the bad guy is, kind of thing. I chose Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I read it about 1.5 years ago, and it just kind of turned my world upside down a little bit. It's about 2 people, Marcus, who's a pretty famous actor in a very popular TV show, and April, who is a plus-size fan fiction writer who keeps her fan fiction writing a secret from her family and friends for years. Marcus also happens to enjoy fan fiction writing, and they quickly become BFFs online without knowing the other's true identity. But eventually they meet in real life and sparks fly, and I just love this book because I think that romance genres nowadays are becoming much more inclusive, and so seeing someone who looks like me on the pages is something that's just really heartwarming and reaffirming. So I just read this one. It's called Abundance by Jacob Blonson. And this is a book that I think I'm going to be thinking about for a while. It's more of a literary book, which is normally a genre I don't read. I'm not a big literary person. But it was a really raw look at a father and son living in extreme poverty after being evicted from their trailer. So the father, Henry, he does his best to look after his son, Junior, but really dire circumstances threaten to unravel everything he's worked so hard to keep together. And my favorite thing about this book is that each chapter is titled with how much money Henry has in his pocket, and how money as an object is almost like a character itself in the book. It's really, really interesting. I really love how unpredictable library work is. I think there's a conception that our jobs are very boring and, not stressful, but my favorite thing is that chaotic excitement, of helping people and not knowing what the day is going to bring. Like, am I going to help someone look for books on Sasquatches or witchcraft, or help someone find a job? Like, it's just, I love that it's like an information ER, and it just keeps me guessing.
That's Haley McCullough, head of adult services for the Grand Prairie Public Library, and I've posted her book picks on my Twitter at CBC Radio Terra. Share them on our show page as well at EDM AM CBC.
And we are heading to Grand Prairie later this week.